Sahih Al-Bukhari 771 narrated Sayyar bin Salama, my father and I went to Abu Barza al-Islami to ask him about the stated times for the prayers. He replied, the Prophet used to offer the Zuhr prayer when the sun just declines from its highest position at noon, the Asr at a time when if a man went to the farthest place in Medina after praying, he would find the sun still hot, bright. The sub-narrator said, I have forgotten what Abu Barza said about the Maghrib prayer. The Prophet never found any harm in delaying the Isha prayer to the first third of the night, and he never liked to sleep before it and to talk after it. He used to offer the morning prayer at a time when after finishing it one could recognize the person sitting beside him and used to recite between 60 to 100 verses in one or both the rakat. Sahih Al-Bukhari 772 narrated Abu Hurairah, the Quran is recited in every prayer, and in those prayers in which Allah's Messenger recited aloud for us, we recite aloud in the same prayers for you. And the prayers in which the Prophet recited quietly, we recite quietly. If you recite Al-Fatiha only it is sufficient, but if you recite something else in addition, it is better. Sahih Al-Bukhari 773 narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet set out with the intention of going to Sukkah's market of Uk's along with some of his companions. At the same time, a barrier was put between the devils and the news of heaven. Fire commenced to be thrown at them. The devils went to their people, who asked them, what is wrong with you? They said, a barrier has been placed between us and the news of heaven, and fire has been thrown at us. They said, the thing which has put a barrier between you and the news of heaven must be something which has happened recently. Go eastward and westward and see what has put a barrier between you and the news of heaven. Those who went towards Tahama came across the Prophet at a place called Nakla, and it was on the way to Sukkah's, and the Prophet was offering the Fajr prayer with his companions. When they heard the Quran they listened to it and said, by Allah, this is the thing which has put a barrier between us and the news of heaven. They went to their people and said, O our people, verily we have heard a wonderful recital, Quran, which shows the true path. We believed in it and would not ascribe partners to our Lord. Allah revealed the following verses to His Prophet, Surah 72, say, it has been revealed to me. And what was revealed to him was the conversation of the jinns. Sahih Al-Bukhari 774 narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet recited aloud in the prayers in which he was ordered to do so and quietly in the prayers in which he was ordered to do so. And your Lord is not forgetful. Verily there was a good example for you in the ways of the Prophet. Sahih Al-Bukhari 774 Banas said, one of the answer used to lead the answer in Salat in the Quba Mosque, and it was his habit to recite Qul Allahu Ahad whenever he wanted to recite something in Salat. When he finished that surah, he would recite another one with it. He followed the same procedure in each rak'ah. His companions discussed this with him and said, you recite the surah and do not consider it sufficient, and then you recite another. So would you recite it alone or leave it and recite some other? He said, I will never leave it, and if you want me to be your imam on this condition then it is all right. Otherwise I will leave you. They knew that he was the best amongst them and they did not like someone else to lead them in Salat. When the Prophet went to them as usual, they informed him about it. The Prophet addressed him and said, O so-and-so, what forbids you from doing what your companions ask you to do? Why do you read the surah particularly in every rak'ah? He replied, I love this surah. The Prophet said, your love for this surah will make you enter paradise. Sahih Al-Bukhari 775 narrated Abu Washington Ill, a man came to Ibn Mas'ud and said, I recited the Mufassal surahs at night in one rak'ah. Ibn Mas'ud said, this recitation is too quick, like the recitation of poetry. I know the identical surahs which the Prophet used to recite in pairs. Ibn Mas'ud then mentioned 20 Mufassal surahs including 2 surahs from the family of, that is those verses which begin with Ha, Mim, which the Prophet used to recite in each rak'ah. Sahih Al-Bukhari 776 narrated Abdullah bin Abi Qatada, my father said, the Prophet uses to recite Al-Fatiha followed by another surah in the first 2 rakat of the prayer, and used to recite only Al-Fatiha in the last 2 rakat of the Zuhr prayer. Sometimes a verse or so was audible, and he used to prolong the first rak'ah more than the second and used to do the same in the Asr and Fajr prayers. Sahih Al-Bukhari 777 narrated Abu Ma'mar, we said to Kebab, did Allah's Messenger used to recite in Zuhr and Asr prayers? He replied in the affirmative. We said, how did you come to know about it? He said, by the movements of his beard. Sahih Al-Bukhari 778 narrated Abdullah bin Abi Qatada, my father said, the Prophet used to recite Al-Fatiha along with another surah in the first 2 rakats of the Zuhr and Asr prayers. A verse or so was audible at times, and he used to prolong the first rak'ah. Sahih Al-Bukhari 779 narrated Abdullah bin Abi Qatada, my father said, the Prophet used to prolong the first rak'ah of the Zuhr prayer and shorten the second one, and used to do the same in the Fajr prayer. Sahih Al-Bukhari 780 narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet said, say Ameen when the Imam says it, and if the Ameen of any one of you coincides with that of the angels, then all his past sins will be forgiven. Ibn Shihab said, Allah's Messenger used to say Ameen